What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Panels on Pages podcast. Today, I want to talk about the insane idea that you can force diversity. For the better part of a decade, unfortunately, there have been people talking about these forced diversity initiatives in comics, in TV, and all of these things. And I want to really specify there is no way to fabricate diversity. Diversity is a real thing. I am not the only person in the world, and other people do not look like me, do not act like me, do not think like me. The world is not one kind of person. So comic books and all of our media should not be geared towards and based on that one kind of person, because there is no such thing. Like, there are practically no straight white males in my entire space, in my entire universe. So why would I, as a straight white male, think, oh, most of everything should be straight white males? That's ignorant. That's incredibly ignorant. And if you look around and everyone in your circle looks and acts and talks and thinks just like you, you are closing yourself off from the reality of the world. When I got to this country, because guess what? I'm an immigrant. When I first got here, I went to a school in Chicago in what has now been gentrified to hell, but in a neighborhood that I went to school with black kids, Mexican kids, Asian kids. I actually, if I recall correctly, because this is always how I recount the tale, it was me and one other fat white kid. Everybody else was not white. So seeing that reality reflected in our media shouldn't be some sort of weird thing or somehow like undesirable. It's the reality of the world. No one is the same. Everyone has something different about them. Even the straight white males in your life may have Scottish ancestry, Irish ancestry, which those are unique in their own way. Should we not have Irish or Scottish characters? Of course not. That doesn't make sense. Like, we should seek to represent all people. Because it's media, we can make it whatever we want. There is plenty, and has been plenty, of media throughout the era, throughout the decades, that feature straight white males and straight white male opinions. So I think it's way past time that we just kind of broaden our horizons a bit. I always talk about how the 90s was the perfect era. And I honestly still stick to that because all of the media I was growing up with was diverse. The biggest blockbusters in Hollywood featured black and Asian lead characters. My favorite comic at the time, the X-Men, saw an explosion of variety and difference because they brought in other characters of different backgrounds. One of my, to this day, favorite characters of all time, Cecilia Reyes, is an Afro-Latina, even though she was only Latina in the New Mutants movie, which is its own problem. She was one of my favorite characters because she was just living her life, and they brought her into the whole craziness of it. Regardless, we'll talk about her in another video, I promise. It blows me away that today in 2021, still people are whining and complaining when there is quote-unquote forced diversity, when we have been building the diversity in our comic books for decades. In the early 2000s, when Grant Morrison did this like whole big quote-unquote relaunch of X-Men, and brought in the whole idea of the school being an actual school and mutants from all over the world being brought to the school, we were introduced to some of the most interesting characters that are still to this day some of the most interesting characters. We had characters of different ethnic backgrounds introduced, we had gay characters introduced, eventually trans characters introduced. Throughout the last 21 years of X-Men, the membership and the character diversity has grown immensely, which is why it's one of my favorite books, honestly. But all of a sudden, it's 2016, and they want to make Captain Marvel the leader of the Avengers, and people lose their minds. If you're a fan, you're reading the comics, you're reading the entire journey. You're reading her getting her powers, you're reading her downfall in the 90s when she succumbed to alcoholism, her fight back, her becoming the Homeland Security superhuman, like, lead, or whatever the fuck her title was. You've watched her grow through this entire arc. So for her to become Captain Marvel, and I thought that was a fantastic move personally, because they set it up in Avengers versus X-Men. If you're not a fan and you're just somebody who read in the 70s and you're reading the headlines, none of it makes sense to you because you don't know what these characters have been through. You don't know what the story is anymore. If you're like, oh, Ms. Marvel, like she's supposed to be Ms. Marvel. Well, you don't even know her entire history. She was known as Binary for a while. Then she was Warbird. Then she went back to Ms. Marvel. Like, you don't know that arc. You don't know that story. So for her to become Captain Marvel and the reason why she became Captain Marvel, you don't know any of that. So when they made her Captain Marvel and then the movie Captain Marvel focused on her instead of the generic white dude, who, by the way, has been dead for 40 years, more actually, I think now, everyone got mad. Everyone got mad about it. But why? Age of Apocalypse came and went. No one shit themselves. Heroes Reborn came and went, and guess what? Sales numbers dictated that people didn't want to read that, so they brought them back to the main universe and went on about their business as they wanted to. When the Avengers first came out, hell, when Iron Man first came out, did you think this was a 616 one-to-one comparison? Because it wasn't. It wasn't. Iron Man 1, so like day one MCU, was not the same as Iron Man in the comics. It just wasn't. But you accepted that. Okay, so then we go to Thor, not the same as the comics. You accepted that. Did not come together in the same way, did not have the same roster, did not have even some of the most important characters to the Avengers mythos. Nobody batted a damn eyelash. So when they brought in Captain Marvel, that was the first Captain Marvel, that was not like the first Captain Marvel in the comics, everyone lost their fucking mind. Back on the comic side, when they revealed that Iceman, Bobby Drake, had been gay the entire time, everyone lost their shit. Why? Honestly, it makes a lot of shit make sense throughout the years. I know everyone shits on the Chuck Austin run. Again, we will still do a whole video on that. But during the Chuck Austin run, he has a huge reaction to North Star like playfully flirting with him. And now, retroactively, when he goes and he kisses the Doctor to like prove his masculinity or whatever, guess what? That makes a whole lot more sense. The fact that he's had all of these relationships, all of these heteronormative relationships over the years, and none of them worked in any fashion. Every time he failed the entire relationship. It all kind of makes sense. And realistically, how many people had Iceman on their top 5 X-Men? Top 5 most powerful, because if you read that last run of Astonishing, top 1 most powerful. That dude is ridiculous. The point is, media, comic books, movies, whatever, are going to be diverse. It's not even that they should. They're going to be diverse because the world is diverse. You are not the same as me, nor are you the same as the person next door, the person across town. You are not the same as everyone else. I know we have this innate need to like belong and feel part of something, but we're not all the same people. We're not all the same person. So at the end of the day, people are diverse, therefore media is going to be diverse. And like launching these campaigns, putting bad reviews on a movie before it even comes out, that is an incredible waste of time. What are you afraid of? Oh my God, maybe it'll be good? And what then? They'll have more movies that are good, featuring women in the lead. Oh my goodness, whatever shall we do? Don't worry, the heteronormative white male superhero character will never die as long as we have Dom Toretto in the Fast and the Furious franchise. And if a solid 10 movies of that is not enough for you, you could always go back to Die Hard. You could always go back to Braveheart. You could always go back to literally 100 years worth of media that feature that exact lead character. So let's get a couple decades at least of something else. There is no such thing as forced diversity because the world is not homogeneous. The world is diverse, and therefore everything that we make is just a reflection of the world. That's all I've got to say on the subject. If you would like to have a discussion about this in depth, if you would like to fight me on this, because boy, would I like to fight someone on this, not physically, verbally, hit me up. Feel free. Because as much as I love being right, this I am the most right on, and no one can convince me otherwise. So please let me be right to your face. That's going to be it for this one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.